Hey everybody, this is going to be quick, late at night here. It is almost 1 a.m., but I had to talk about this. This is just nuts. It's just so nuts. Sometimes you'd think that even the left would try to be smart about what they're doing, and it seems like they are so full of themselves and filled with hatred. And here I'm talking about Israel, a hatred of Israel. And I'm talking about Jews and Israelis on the left right now. That's what I'm talking about. All right? It's just nuts what I'm about to tell you. 3 different things just today. 3 different headlines from today showing how the left has totally lost it. Now, when I say totally lost it, it's been like this for a while, but they've really gone off the deep end. Like really, and they must have made a conscious decision to just go off the deep end. So I'm going to tell you what these 3 things are. So stick with me. I'm going to tell you. But somebody made a post, a friend of mine made a post, and he basically said, talking about one of them, that basically the left, the Israeli left, just shot itself in the foot, that it's their own fault. They're going to lose the next elections, and that Bibi or the right are going to win the elections, because they're just exposing themselves as not looking out for the interests of Israel. It is just so clear. It's just so clear they are not looking out for the interests of their own country and their own people. It is just nuts. Okay, here we go. 3 things. Number one, the UN today, at the United Nations, sitting next to the fake self-identified Palestinian representative, right, in the United Nations, right? There is no such thing as Palestinians. They've been saying for years that they are all about destroying Israel, that they are a fake identity created to destroy Israel. They say it themselves. We know it. For over 100 years, the Arabs have said no to every single 2-state solution. They don't want a 2-state solution. They want to destroy Israel. That's the way it's been. Okay? In any case, sitting next to this fake Palestinian Arab in the United Nations today was an Israeli who runs an anti-Israeli organization called Betselem. And he gave testimony on the floor of the United Nations saying that it's the Palestinian Arabs who are the true heroes because they live under occupation. That guy is an Israeli. He has lost it. He has lost it. His organization has lost it. They are not pro-Israel. They are anti-Israel. They are helping our enemies in the delegitimization process against Israel. That's the organization called Betselem, if you are not familiar with it. All right? And again, let's just break this down. 1, there is no such thing as a Palestinian people, historic people. They are a modern creation just over the past 50 years. Someone please do some research and find me a cultural icon of a Palestinian from the 18th century, from the 17th century, from the 19th century, right? They have nobody. They have nothing. No leaders, no cultural icons, no imams, no nothing. Why? Because they are a nothing. The Palestinians are a nothing burger. They are a fake people created to destroy Israel. They are people, and today they self-identify as Palestinians, but they're all different Arabs that moved over to our country over the past 150, 200 years. Some lived here for hundreds of years, but a very small minority. Majority of them immigrated to here because the Jews were living here and there were jobs for them from the rest. So they came from the rest of the Arab world. There is no historic people called Palestinians, right? One of the biggest clans of Arab Muslims in the Judea and Samaria or Gaza as the Al-Masri family. It's an Egyptian city. Okay, it's an Egyptian family that came here, and now there's a huge clan. They weren't here hundreds of years. So that's lie number one that this guy said in the United Nations. Lie number two, the occupation. Do you know who's occupying you? Well, it's the Palestinian Authority occupying the Jewish land of Judea and Samaria. It is Hamas who are occupying the Jewish land of Gaza. It's Hamas who are persecuting their own fellow Arabs in Gaza, and it's the Palestinian Authority who also are not developing jobs and the economy and hospitals for their own people in Judea and Samaria, aka the West Bank. So there is no occupation, right? 97% of all the Arabs in Judea and Samaria and Gaza live under their own leadership. So if anyone's occupying the Palestinian Arabs, it is the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. Okay, so let's just get that straight. So here we have an Israeli in the United Nations helping the enemies of Israel. That's number one. Horrible. Okay, but he's doing it. He's doing it like he's gone to the extent of sitting in the United Nations and saying things that are anti-Israel. Okay, that's number one. Number two, Israel has a law on the books. The Knesset, Israel's parliament, put a law on the books against anti-Israel activists of BDS, right? The Boycott, Divestment, Sanctions movement. That if you are an activist in the BDS, Israel has a right to not let you into the country because the BDS is about destroying Israel. So any country has a right to approve who can come into the country. And if such a person is one who supports destroying your country, then that country has every right not to let you in. Therefore, Israel has a law on the books that this government just passed the past year and a half ago. Right? Great. Wonderful. Well, a BDS activist just tried to come into Israel. Guess what? She was stopped. She was told to turn around, right? So she didn't turn around. She ended up staying at the airport. She's forbidden to leave the airport, right? Because it's against the law. The law said that if you're an anti-Israel BDS activist, you were forbidden from entering the country, so she couldn't leave the airport. So she was told to fly home. She didn't fly home. So first of all, what were all the headlines in the newspapers around the world? That that Israel is holding her against her will in the airport. No, Israel did not hold her against her will in the airport. They just forbid her from entering the country. She was welcome to go on a plane and go anywhere else in the world, especially back to her home in America. And she decided not to. She decided to stay in the airport, so she was stuck in the airport by her own decision. That's point number one. Point number two, she decided to go to court. Okay, she went to court against the Israeli government for upholding the Israeli government law. So the first court she went to actually said that she was wrong, right? The government was right in applying the law, not letting her in the country. Great. But then she applied, what's it called? After one court, she then went to a higher court. So she went to the Supreme Court. Everybody here knows. Everyone in Israel knows. The Supreme Court is still leftist. All right, even though the current Minister of Justice is the best Minister of Justice Israel has ever had, really trying to make changes to break the left monopoly on the Supreme Court. Still, the system of the Supreme Court ensures that they can decide. The way the Supreme Court works is some cases have 3 judges, some cases have 5 judges, some cases have 9 judges, right? So it's supposed to be a random system, right, of how the judges are put together. But the biggest kept secret is that it's not a random system. It is rigged. The head of the Supreme Court, she herself is a leftist, rigs certain cases so that, let's just say, she likes the outcome, okay? So that still happens, even though, again, the current Minister of Justice is trying her best to make the changes necessary so that the Supreme Court is more fair with people of not just left ideological opinion, but also conservative and a mix, and to make it more fair for all of Israeli society. And so what happened today? So this BDS activist basically took her case to the Supreme Court. And lo and behold, what did the Supreme Court rule? You can guess it. The Supreme Court overturned the lower court's ruling in giving credence to the government enforcing its law to stop her from entering the country. And the Supreme Court said, no, the government has to let this anti-Israel activist who actively supported the destruction of Israel, who was an active BDS activist on her college campus in America. The Supreme Court ruled that she is allowed to come into the country and overturned the government in stopping her from entering the country. Folks, the Supreme Court just gave us a big present, because even though what it just did is wrong, overturning the government enforcing a law on the books based on its own value system, they just shot themselves in the foot, because more Israelis understand that law. Israelis approve of that law. Israelis understand that it's okay to have a law that forbids people who want to destroy you from entering your country. And here, when it sees its own Supreme Court overturning the government and allowing someone to come into the country who should have been forbidden from entering the country, more Israelis now see that part of the problem in Israel is the Supreme Court, and the only way we will make a difference in applying our sovereignty properly is if changes are made to the Supreme Court. Because the government in Israel, no matter how right-wing conservative a government we have, the Supreme Court is always used as a tool to overturn policies of that right-wing conservative government. So the only way to move forward in Israel with a conservative agenda is to change the legal system, to change the way things work in the Supreme Court, to stop allowing, what are they called? The legal counsel, governmental legal counsels from overturning government policies. That's what happens here in Israel. Legal counsel to ministers, they don't just see their roles as consultants, as advisors. They see their roles as being able to stop the agendas of the elected government, of the elected ministers that they're supposed to work for. In a sense, in Israel, the legal establishment, which has filled its rank with left-wing attorneys that have been trained by the New Israel Fund, which itself also is anti-Israel, they constantly overturn government policy. That is a whole other topic to go into, but that's the short story of it. So here again, we have a case where the Supreme Court overruled government enforcing a law stopping an anti-Israel activist from entering the country. Supreme Court rules that she can come into the country, and now you have many Israelis understanding Supreme Court has to be changed how it works. It can't continue because a government is not able to enforce policy without these changes being made at the Supreme Court level. So hopefully that was they might have won the battle, but hopefully they're going to be helping us win the war in having the next government make the changes necessary to stop this judicial dictatorship, as I call it. That's a stranglehold on the Israeli government, on the Israeli society. That's number two. So we just talked about the two things, how the left has lost it. What's the third thing that the left has lost it? Well, the third thing has to do with J Street. Anyone familiar with J Street in the United States of America? J Street sells itself as pro-Israel, pro-peace. Folks, J Street is anti-Israel. J Street lobbied the American government for the Iran deal. Even while Israel, both right and left in Israel, were behind Bibi Netanyahu in fighting the Iran deal. Iran is the most existential threat to Israel, both in Iran itself with its nuclear weapons that it's been developing, and with the 150,000 rockets that they have in Lebanon to Hezbollah. Hezbollah is an Iranian proxy, and Hamas is an Iranian proxy today in Gaza. So Iran is the biggest existential threat to Israel, more so than the fake Palestinian Arabs. And even though all of Israeli society was against the Iran deal, J Street lobbied for the Iran deal. How can you call yourself pro-Israel when you lobby against what 99.9% of the Israeli public is for? No, J Street is anti-Israel, and that's just one example of it. Another example of it, well, again, here you're talking about a situation of years, that it's the Palestinian Authority that says no to every deal put on the table, that it's Mahmoud Abbas who says no to negotiating with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He says no to the Trump deal, to President Trump deal, to even talking to the American administration, anyone associated with President Trump. And what does J Street do? Today, they just had a sit-down meeting with Mahmoud Abbas of the Palestinian Authority. And what did Mahmoud Abbas say to J Street? He said, thank you for all of the lobbying you're doing on our behalf in Washington. Do you need any other proof that J Street is anti-Israel? They're sitting down with an enemy entity. I don't care if they're still considered a peace partner by the President of the United States and the U.S. administration, and then even Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu considers them the partner to be at peace with. The Palestinian Authority is an enemy. Their television programs incite their children to murder Jews. Their school books that educate their children incite their children to murder Jews, and that Israel has no right to exist. Palestinian Authority is an enemy. And here you have J Street sitting down with the Palestinian Authority, and the Palestinian Authority saying, thank you for all the lobbying efforts you're doing on our behalf. No, J Street is not pro-Israel. And they have also lost it. So here you go. You have three cases. You have the case of Betselem standing up for the enemy Palestinian Authority at the United Nations. You have the case of the Israeli left-wing Supreme Court standing up and overturning a government ruling forbidding an anti-Israel activist from entering the country. And three, we have the American J Street being thanked by Mahmoud Abbas in a personal meeting with him, thanking J Street for all the lobbying they're doing on their behalf in Washington, D.C. So there you go, folks. The left has lost it. They're not pro-Israel. And I'm talking about Israelis. They're not pro-Israel. They're pro-multicultural, one state where Israel is no longer Jewish. That's what they're pro. And I'm going to call out their insanity. You know why they're insane? And this also has to do with the left in the rest of the world as well. But right now I'm talking about Israel. These Israeli Jewish leftists are insane. Because if what they want comes true, what do they want? They want Israel to be a non-Jewish country where all its citizens live equally. If that comes true, if their dream comes true and Israel is no longer a Jewish country, then guess what, folks? The Muslims take charge. And just like any country in the Middle East, when the Muslims take charge, the minorities are persecuted. And when it comes to us Jews, many of us would be killed, including these leftist Jews and Israelis who want that to be the solution. Instead of looking at what happens in the other Muslim-run countries in the world, where minorities are persecuted, and thinking, that will be the situation in Israel if Israel stops being a Jewish country, because then the Muslims will take over, and that will happen to us. So we can't have that happen. No. They are actively working to destroy Israel as a Jewish state, where in the end, if their dream happens, they themselves would be persecuted and may be killed as well. And the irony is, and this is the kicker, the irony is that all minorities, including Muslims, are safest in the Middle East in the Jewish state of Israel. They have full equality, they have full freedom of religion, they have full ability to work in all jobs, right? We have Muslim police officers, judges, parliamentarians, Supreme Court judges, right? They have full equality to do everything, only under a Jewish state. And if these leftists would succeed in achieving what they want, that Israel is no longer a Jewish state, then they themselves would be persecuted. That is the idiocy, the insanity of the left. It's just crazy. All right, guys, 1 o'clock in the morning. I still have work to do. I'm going to sign off. Share, share, share. It's by educating people we have to wake people up. So please share, 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 as Ari would say. Laila Tov, from the ancestral Jewish homeland of the Jewish people, here in the Judean hills, folks. I'm home, baby. The Jewish people are home, and we're back to help anyone who wants to live peacefully with us to live the most prosperous, best life as possible. So support Israel, support the Jewish people, and let's make this happen. And let's call out the idiocy and insanity of the left, who are just bringing about destruction upon themselves if they would succeed. All right? So wait, let's see what we got. Some David Shea, how you doing, David? Laila Tov. Yeah, let's see what the comments are. Then I'll say a final Laila Tov. We got Letitia says hi. Joanne says hello. David says hi, bro, because he is my bro. Anne says shalom. Evo, shalom, shalom. Cheryl, the Israel Supreme Court and most Israeli judges are anti-Zionist, right? So some, I wouldn't call them anti-Zionist. They are just of liberal bent, and that liberal bent basically allows them to be destroying the Jewish character of the state of Israel. That's how I define it. Asver gives me a clap, thank you. Gila, shalom, Gila. Jonathan gives me a clap. Raja, hello. Asmer, shalom from Torshvan. I'm going to have to learn how to pronounce that name where you live, Asver, and your name, because I have no clue what country that is or what language you're talking. I want to know so I can respect you properly. Carolyn says, shalom. Letitia, I can't understand the Supreme Court allowed BDS come inside Israel. Well, again, I can't understand it either, but it's an ideological agenda where immoral values trumps law, right? You're talking about a Supreme Court that doesn't apply law. They apply their own skewed liberal, it's not liberal, their own skewed leftist value system that has nothing to do with the law. Shabbat Shalom Asfer. Marios, Shalom from the Netherlands. Thank you. Ari from Lakeland, Florida. We are winning. Okay, I don't know what you're talking about, Ari, but yes, we are winning. If you're referring to what I'm talking about, then I would take a guess you're referring to the fact that the left are just digging themselves a deeper hole, and yes, we will win in the end. Gila, Linda says, gives me a thumbs up. Gila, send them to Jordan. Arabs in Judea and Samaria one day might go to Jordan, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Shirley, oh my God, saying hi. I can't see. It's too small. Linda, excellent. Dan, thumbs up. Gila, makes me angry, and Israel gave Gaza away. Yes, I was, and those of you who do not know, Gila is referring to the 2005 Gaza disengagement, which I call an expulsion, where 10,000 Jews were expelled from their homes. I was actively protesting against that. I snuck into Gush Katif. I was actively protesting against that because I knew that the active expulsion of 10,000 Jews and destruction of their homes by the Israeli government would not be bad for those people who lost their homes. It was a tragedy for the state of Israel and a tragedy for the Jewish people around the world. Because the second people around the world see the state of Israel destroying Jewish homes on their own, then it just gives a green light to the growth of anti-Semitism. And back then in 2005, I said, the Israeli government doing this now in 2005, anti-Semitism is going to spike. And unfortunately, I was right. I wish I was wrong. Okay, Orly, clap. Andrea, Israel Supreme Court is nuts. They don't follow law. Yeah, I just spoke about it. It's not about the law. It's about their illiberal left ideology. Orly, shalom from London. Shalom, Orly. Linda, she also belongs to J Street. Our Supreme Court also leftist. Yes. Cheryl, she didn't go to the court without the help of Hebrew U and J Street. Correct. Cheryl is correct. At Hebrew University, she was supposed to be going there to study, which is interesting of itself because it's kind of paradox, because here you have an anti-Israel activist, and again, you look her up and you see the activities she did on her college campus were horrible against Israel, and yet she was coming to Israel to study at Hebrew University, and Hebrew University, which is also known, well, academia in itself, as in America, also in Israel, academia is very leftist and also not Zionistic, and they signed on as a side. It's called with her in the Supreme Court case. David Shear appeal. There is no appealing the Supreme Court. Nava Gilman, leftist is an understatement. Okay. Phyllis, Avi, you are amazing. Thank you, Phyllis. Wow, it's so nice. I see family watching me. It's wonderful having everyone watch, but having family, that's very special also. Randy, hello. Linda, thank you, Avi, for talking about this. Thank you, Linda, for watching, and all of you. Lisa, thank you for carrying on Ari's work. May he rest in peace. Amen, Lisa. Amen. And yeah, it's just Ari's loss left a void. And it's like, because I let him do his stuff before he died, before he was murdered. I was happy he was doing his stuff because I was focused on my stuff, and I knew Ari was doing his stuff. And the second Ari was no longer, I said, that's it, I got to double down, I got to take over as best as possible. So thank you, Lisa, for that comment. Of course, I wish he was here doing it instead of me, but gotta accept reality. Joanne, hi from Sunderland, England. Thank you, Joanne. Randy, watching from Trinidad and Tobago. Wonderful, thank you. Jose, saludar. I may guess that means shalom. So, shalom. Dechi, hello. Letitia, how people can manage to change this. Ooh, great question, Letitia. But okay, guys, for those of you who don't yet totally know me, I'm an optimist. Things are changing. Things are changing. When I say the left has lost it, I'm actually also putting that in a positive spin, because little by little people are waking up and the changes are happening in order for the left to be losing their influence. It's a process. Rome was not built in a day, as they like to say, and the left has a strong stranglehold, a very strong stranglehold on not just in Israel, but also the other Western countries as well. But so it takes time to change, but things are changing. Okay, things are changing. Things are going in the right direction. So there is what to be positive about. So please, there are other times I focus on the positive. Right now I'm focusing on the negative aspects. But for all of you who are still here, just hold on. There is positive. Things are changing. We wish it would change faster, but things are changing. And I do believe that by talking about this and educating people, we can be active participants in making the change happen even quicker. So that's why this is all important. Chana, you're right, Avi. Couldn't believe it when I heard the news. Yeah, crazy stuff. Dan Haskell, Avi Abel for Knesset. Thank you, Dan. But no, I do not see myself going to the Knesset. I see myself sitting in front of the camera and helping as many people as possible learn the truth, so we can be more educated to be effective in bringing about the change, and also voting for the right people. But me, myself, I do not see myself in the Knesset. And if you want to talk to me about it another time, you can. I'll tell you exactly why. Letitia, now in the elections, this can be changed. So not totally, but hopefully the changes that have started will continue. Well, whether the situation can totally be changed in the next election, I don't know. I doubt it. But hopefully, again, the direction will continue. Julian, the UN and J Street are a disaster. These people are a disaster. They're a bunch of misfits that just want their 5 minutes of fame. So, Julian, in the beginning, I agree. UN and J Street are a disaster, and those people are a disaster. A bunch of misfits just want their 5 minutes of fame? No, it's much more sinister than that. They actually have an agenda to destroy the Jewish character of the state of Israel and make Israel just a state of a non-Jewish state. And here you're talking about some Jews and Israelis involved in that, which is very sad, extremely sad. So it's not about wanting their fame. They actually have an agenda, and they're working very diligently with a strategy to accomplish it. So that's the sad thing. But like I used to tell my grandfather, and if my aunt Phyllis is still watching, she'd appreciate this because it was her father. My grandfather always used to come to me complaining about the Israeli government. Avi, why did you do this? Why didn't they do that? How can it be? How can Jews do this to Jews? Right? He was very upset with the whole Gush Katif thing. How can Israel be destroying Jewish homes? It didn't make sense. He was really upset. And I used to tell him the following, and this, everyone internalized this. And this has to do with what Julian was saying. And how I answered. the fact that fellow Jews and Israelis are actively working against the Jewish state. On the one hand, that makes you shocked, how can this be? And it's horrible. Well, I like to look things through a historical perspective. And through a historical perspective, if you look at every single generation of Jewish history, fellow Jews have always been our own worst enemies who have helped our enemies. This isn't something new. This is something that happens generation after generation to generation. So what I told my grandfather every time he was upset, I said, Saba, think about this. This happens in every generation. We always have fellow Jews who help our enemies try to destroy us. But we're the first generation that we have our own country and our own army to defend ourselves. At least it's now happening in our own country. And we're able to make a difference, and we're able to improve, and we're in charge. Because up until our generation, it was always when we were in other countries and at the whims of our host countries, and we were never able to stand up and defend ourselves. Today we are. And that's the major difference. It's a major difference. So I don't let this get me too upset. It's upsetting, and I want to educate everyone about what it's upsetting about, but I don't let it get to me too upset, because as a realist, I see that it's the same thing that happens in every generation, yet in our generation, we're the luckiest of them all, because we have our own country, we're sovereign, we have our own army, we're able to defend ourselves, and we're able to make the changes to our own government to overcome these problems. So that's why I call myself a realistic optimist. So please stick with me and be realistic optimists with me. But that doesn't mean ignoring the bad. It's accepting the bad, talking about it, educating people about it, and then being active to change it, but yet still being realistically optimistic about the future. Dan says, Shalom. Cheryl J Street is bragging online. They and their friends at Amenu, Americans for Peace. Now, NCJW, New Israel Fund, Partners for Progressive Israel Reconstruction, Judaism, and Trua, worked on behalf of Al-Qassam, and let's not forget about Hebrew University. You want to know what I say, Cheryl? Let them brag. Let them brag, because they're going to lose in the long run. Let them brag. Gila, Avi, you are amazing. Thank you, Gila. Felix, glad to see you are awakening. They are globalists. New World Order. Okay, so Felix, I've spoken about this in the past, and I'll speak about it again, and I'm a big, in Hebrew we call chassid. I'm a big student of British journalist Melanie Phillips. I interview her every week, every Tuesday morning on her Facebook page, Melanie Phillips' Facebook page. And Melanie Phillips has a very, very succinct approach to analyzing the world. And what she says is what's going on today in every Western country. In every Western country. And the truth is, Israel is not really a Western country, because we're in the East, and Jews are exiled from all over the world, and we're back, and we're Middle Eastern, but that's a different topic. But Israel, Western Europe, America, Australia, Canada, what is really going on? And Melanie Phillips hits the nail on the head. It is a struggle between those who believe in a national identity against the globalists, multiculturalists who are against ethnic identities. That's what it's about, right? We believe it's fine. It's fine to be Israeli. It's fine to be Jewish. And for this to be a Jewish state, it's fine for France to be proud to be French, for British to be British, for Americans to be Americans. There's nothing bad with that. But it's the multiculturalists, globalists who are against that. They want to destroy national identities and just bring in multiculturalism. But they don't even see many people don't see the inherent hypocrisy, because on the one hand they say multiculturalism, on the other hand they denigrate Judaism, Christianity, and yet Islam can't be insulted, and Islam is allowed to do all its evil, even in the Western world. So even these multiculturalist globalists are in bed with them Islamists about destroying the Western countries. In any case, that's what's going on. Melanie Phillips says that. Big chassid of hers, big student of hers. Gila Hitler all over again. I don't know what you're referring to by that, Gila. Forgive me. Letitia, we can't let these things happen. Dan, Laila Tov. Christine, God will not let this happen. So, Christine, here, you know what? And then, oh, Jonathan Bella says, thank you. Ari, I guess you threw it to me. Avi, but I'll take that also, Jonathan. Even though, yes, Ari is with me. And then people saying Laila Tov because I said Am Yisrael. Oh, and Letitia says Am Yisrael. So God will not let this happen. I'll finish with the comment on this and then I gotta go. I'm a big believer. Obviously, I'm a big believer. I'm a religious man believer in God. I'm a big believer that God helps those who help themselves. Meaning, if we just sit back and say, God will not let this happen, well, that won't help. We have to also pray as well as act. And then God will help who helps themselves. When God sees that we're doing, in Hebrew the word is hishtadlut, when we're doing our efforts to make a difference and bring about change, God will help us make that happen. But if we just sit back and do nothing, or even just sit back and pray, just hoping for God's assistance, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't work. But in truth, the only way to really bring about God to help us is for us to help ourselves, and then God helps us achieve what needs to be done. I'm a big believer that many miracles happen every day. God is miraculous. And in most of these miracles, we don't even see their miracles because God's using them and doing them in such a natural way. And one of the most natural ways is the fact that we helping bring about these miracles to happen. I mean, very simple examples in war, in battle. Like, we're fighting, and especially in the Israeli wars, we're fighting, and then things happen that miraculously we win. And meaning they don't teach Israeli wars at West Point because they make no sense on an academic battle plan level. Like, none of Israel's wars make any sense. We should have lost every single war. So there are people who don't believe in God who say it's all the Israeli army. God didn't play a role. And I think they're off their rocker. Yes, the Israeli army played a role, but we only won because we had God. It's that simple. Every battle, every war Israel has fought in was filled with miracles. So we had to fight. If we did not put soldiers on the line to fight, we would have lost the war. But it's because we put soldiers out there and we train and we're ready and we fight, then God does his miracle stuff and then we win. And some people will see them and say miracles, and other people will say, no, it was all man. But they're the ones who are really missing out on seeing God in nature and in the way things actually happen. All right, folks, that's all. It's late, 1:30 a.m. Got to finish work and then go to bed. Thank you so much for watching. And again, as Ari would say, share, 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 and be active in helping educate others so we can bring about the change necessary, not just for Israel, but for the whole freedom-loving world. Shalom, once again. Take care, everyone, and thanks again for watching.